Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I didn't mean to shout into the microphone. It's made the room quiet, though. I'm Ellen Yang, the Executive Director of Strategic Policy in the Queensland Government Customer and Digital Group. We begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet, the Yagara and Turrbal people, and we pay our respects to elders past and present. We recognise those whose ongoing effort to protect and promote Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures will leave a lasting legacy for future elders and leaders. I've got a few housekeeping items. In the event of an alarm going off, don't follow me. Make sure that you know where the emergency exits are. They actually are to the left and right of me here, and at the rear of the auditorium as well, up the back stairs if you are seated up the back there. The assembly area is the grassed area in front of the Queensland Art Gallery, and if you do need a bathroom, because when you need to go, they're actually just directly across the hallway as you exit the auditorium. May I also please ask that you put your mobile phone on silent mode now if it is within reach. This is our first PiT briefing for 2024, and it's really wonderful to be back here at the State Library of Queensland this morning to hear more about some of the wonderful initiatives taking place across Queensland Government. It's really great to see so many of you, and I'd also like to welcome those of you who are joining us on the live stream. Today's format includes two presentations that will take us through to approximately 9:20, and then we'll have a Q&A session, and we'll aim to conclude at around 9:35. And then you're very welcome, those of you that are here, to join us next door on the Queensland Terrace for networking and some morning tea. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Chris McLaren. Chris is the Queensland Government Chief Customer and Digital Officer, and he does lead our Queensland Government Customer and Digital Group. Chris is very focused on driving Queensland's digital economy, delivering better citizen-centric services, and optimising Queensland Government investment and use of technology. He is a globally experienced senior executive with a successful 25-year track record leading, growing, transforming and advising technology, telecom, utility, energy, services and software organisations, including multinationals and startups. Chris specialises in digital enablement and transformation, customer experience, operations improvement and technology innovation. Sorry, Chris, I should know your bio by now. Chris has an honours degree in electrical engineering from UTS and has completed studies in governance at the AICD and digital strategy and transformation at MIT. I very happily hand over to Chris now.
Thanks, Ellen. What am I meant to say? Is this thing on? Good to see you all. It's good to see a relatively full room today. Good to see you gents. Good to see you ladies. Be good to see a few more females in the room. Gents, we've got more work to do to bring diversity to digital. I've got about 25 minutes, quite a lot of content. We'll probably speed up, slow down. Matthew right here is going to keep me honest, keep me on track. But really I want to do a bit of a big picture. Where are we on our journey? A few reflections on the things that we accomplished last year, and then what we're focusing on this year. And then I think we've got time at the end to do Q&A. Little bit of a recap. I think all of you by now should know, QGCDG, we are a whole of government organisation. We exist to serve agencies and stat bodies. So we provide some form of service to 25 agencies and about 35 stat bodies. So we truly are a whole of government entity. Fun fact, we have about roughly 60% of our revenue comes from fee-for-service. So that's actually other agencies and stat bodies to do something on their behalf. About 25% is for delivering large whole of government, whole of economy programs on behalf of the government. And the last little bit, it's about 13% actually, is appropriated funding. So you get the sense that we need to deliver exceptional service for agencies and the government to invest in us and as a delivery vehicle. you get the sense there we do a wide range of things, everything from architecture, digital identity, payroll, critical infrastructure, cybersecurity that Rob will talk about, artificial intelligence, data, AI, ICT strat sourcing, a really broad portfolio of activities. Part of what I love about the job, really gives me just incredible variety and challenges me every single day to think about a new problem and new solutions. 2023 overview. Anybody that's worked with me knows that I love to talk about analogies, or talk in analogies, think in analogies, whether it's the Westfield analogy or the house analogy or some other analogy. This is a little bit of the airplane analogy. The way I would say, you know, when I came back to Australia in 2022, you know, the borders had just opened up, and I think we're all collectively coming out of COVID. Yes, the sun came up again, lockdowns ended, borders were open, the world was starting to get back to normal. And I think that was a little bit where we were as a group. You know, we'd kind of been in survival mode, if I can put it that way, very much focused on supporting the government of the day, manage the COVID crisis, in addition to doing everything that we needed to do. Yeah, there'd been some tightening of the belts around investments and things like that. And so when I came back and as we started to reflect as a leadership team, we said, now's the time for us to be looking to the future. The sun is up again. We need to get back to that growth mindset. And I think as a group, it was an opportunity for us to reflect on who are we, why do we exist, what's our purpose? And I talked about that probably 2 or 3 PiTs ago, a vision, a value proposition, all those things. It was a really strong, powerful, unifying moment for us. So I think, you know, if my airplane analogy, you know, in that instance was we were kind of parked at the gate, doing some thinking, some you know, planning and strategizing. 2023, beginning of last year, it was really about direction setting. It was a lot about the what do we want to do, what are we delivering, and for who. We implemented OKRs. Many of you would be familiar with OKRs, objectives and key results, and that gave us that clear, you know, it's as the Japanese call it, Hoshin Kanri. You know, Hoshin is the destination, Kanri is the turn-by-turn directions you take, and that was something that unified us. We implemented quarterly performance reviews, and we really started to gel as a team and pick up momentum. That's the part of the analogy where it's like we're taxiing towards the runway. And then 2024, this is really where we get the all clear to move down the runway and lift off. So we need to get to that point where we've got takeoff speed, we're scaling, we're building. You know, another analogy I would use in this instance is we're breaking ground, we're pouring concrete, we're putting the frames up. You know, we're not over-analyzing and overthinking and you know, too much. We actually got to get on and build, because much of what we do, we learn by building, and that's the way we discover. So this is a lot more about the when are we going to do things. We made a set of declarations and commitments for the clear things that we want to deliver as a group through the course of 2024. As the expression goes, it's much easier to say no to something if you've already said yes to something else. So these are the things that we've said yes to, and about the how. Now, in addition to that, we obviously don't stop as a business and take 2 years to reflect. As I said, we're about 60-odd% fee for service, so we've got to pay people, we've got to deliver critical infrastructure, we've got to support, you know, 110-odd million customer interactions per year. So on top of that, big focus on continuous improvement, innovation, and service delivery. So I think that gives you a sense of where we are on the journey. You know, I think we're at that point where we're pulling back on the joystick in the plane and moving up. Are we at cruising altitude yet? No, long way to go, but I feel really confident on the things that we're doing, and we've just got, I think, incredible focus as a team. I won't go through this, but it just gives you a sense of the things that we're focusing on. These are our priority areas. I've shared this before. Our OKRs hang off of this, and then the next level down, we've got our commitment roadmap. which, as a leadership team, we talk about every single week, extended leadership team, and then we have a very tight operating rhythm to ensure that we're staying on track on our commitments. And we generally talk, more and more around digital customer, digital government, and digital economy. They're kind of our three core focus areas, with cybersecurity and data and AI being two underlying cross-government pillars. So what have we done in 2023? We've started designing, we've developed our strategy for our new digital customer platform and our strategy, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later on. We did well, again, very well, flying the flag for Queensland in the Oz Contact Centre Awards. I think since we've started kind of promoting that we're doing this, I'm seeing more and more corporates and other entities jump into the competition, which is good. Competition's increasing. 120 million customer interactions last year, 94% customer sat, and we launched the digital chat service, which I'll talk about, and it was actually in Innovation Oz today, one of our huge accomplishments last year. Digital economy, so we partnered with the federal government. We secured 80 million of investment with 20 million of the state's funds, so nearly a 4-to-1, rough numbers, 4-to-1 return on investment. Pretty good leverage for the taxpayer and the customer. So, we got the feds put in 40, the carriers put in 20, and we put in 20. So really good accomplishment out of RCP3. We launched a really unique, I think, Australian first partnership with LGAQ and SpaceX to deploy Starlink units to our most underserved communities, which are our First Nations communities. That program is going really, really well, and we'll get that complete probably mid to late this year. We established 2 First Nations digital service centres, Cherbourg and Palm Islands, with a lot of great partners involved. We've been working really hard to solve the device poverty across the state, particularly for people with disabilities, remote, rural, kids in schools, underprivileged areas. That's been a big push. We're getting towards the end of our digital professional workforce plan, so we've engaged with over 300,000 Queenslanders, and we've trained 7,700 to be digitally job ready. By the time July 1 rolls around, we will have trained 10,000 Queenslanders, and they tend to be the most disadvantaged or digitally excluded Queenslanders, whether it's First Nations, culturally, linguistically diverse, neurodiverse, et cetera. So over-indexing on that again. Our Building Digital Equity program just goes from strength to strength. I'll talk about that. Many of you are involved in that. This is this body that we established as a bit of an experiment between the peak bodies from the disability sector and I would say the best of the best from the technology industry, the carriers, the software companies, and it's all about creating and connecting between those two groups, and we're working on some very specific, tangible things together, and Ellen actually leads that work, and that's going incredibly well, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Digital government, we launched data sharing framework, we built a data sharing framework. We're in test at the moment on some specific use cases. We've been very actively involved representing Queensland's interests, both from a government and I'd say more importantly a citizen and business standpoint in relation to the Commonwealth Digital Identity legislation, single touch payroll, we got our cyber hazard plan out. AI guidance, policy and capability development has been a huge piece of work, just incredible accomplishments for the team over the last year. I'll talk about that more. And one of those things was our fast AI risk assessment framework. So we've got a dual mandate there of building the capability to make it safe and easy and available for people to use artificial intelligence, either at the agency level or the public servant level, but also providing the guardrails for safe, ethical and responsible artificial intelligence. Customer sat, good. We take that very seriously for all of our government customers. Our government customers always have the choice to go somewhere else if they don't think they're getting value for money out of QG-CDG. Keeps us on our toes, keeps us focused on customer service delivery. And QChat. We launched QChat last year, and we're just in the process now of going into full public sector-wide availability of QChat. We had our second release, and as I said, this has been a really incredible piece of work. It's allowed us to learn by doing rather than sitting up on the balcony and doing policy by thinking or perspective. It's really allowed us to get a unique perspective and in-depth insight into the risks of AI, but also the opportunity. So think about QChat as a incredibly well-educated college graduate that's probably got 25 advanced degrees and never complains, don't need to pay them anything. They're incredibly fast. They can do just about anything you ask them to, but it's still a college graduate. So are you going to trust them to do something that you're going to put in front of a senior politician or someone without reviewing? No, of course you're not. But are they going to be able to remove the burden and get things done that you probably don't want to do, at least the first or the second draft? Absolutely, and that's the way we kind of introduce it to the public sector. Everybody's got, through a chat service, a college graduate that's got, you know, a law degree, a computer science degree, an English degree, a history degree, and they can do anything just about as well as you, but they're fresh out of uni, so you need to keep an eye on them and make sure they don't make mistakes. So we've grounded it in the way that we expect a college graduate should operate within the public service. So public sector code of conduct, all those things grounded in Queensland, Australia, grounded in the way that we think it should operate. It's LLM agnostic. We can stick it on top of anything, whether it's Gemini or Anthropic or any other model that comes along. Yeah, we've done it so far with OpenAI's model, and it's fantastic. And then what's probably more powerful are the specific use cases that we're going to put on top of that. And hopefully, not too far down the track, we'll be able to talk in more depth about what some of those use cases are. Workforce, so a lot of work going on around training in the cyberspace, our government wireless network, so we support 20,000 plus police, fire and ambulance first responders with the digital radio network. We received an award for that. We've also done the technical and agreement configuration with New South Wales, so fire and ambulance can roam across the border, which is quite handy because disasters tend not to follow state borders. Premier's Award, 20 years QSS, pretty remarkable. Rob will talk about some of this. You know, we're just seeing an increasing volume of malicious attempt attacks on Queensland Government. We've got an incredibly high success rate of taking down denial of service attacks or attempt. This is actually a unique piece of infrastructure that no other state, territory or Commonwealth has. Our Queensland Secure Internet Gateway really gives us an incredible source of intelligence about what the bad guys are up to and then what they're trying to do to us. Rob will talk more about that. QGRN, it's another network that we run, 23.4 billion vendor payments. You can thank me later. 2.1 million pays delivered. So a lot going on. So 2024, how am I doing on time? 10 minutes. So we'll go through this a bit quick. So, you know, every year we do this work where we talk to the customer and we say, what do you want? What do you don't like? And, you know, this year it was kind of obvious that customers, they're just saying the same thing again and again, which is kind of handy, but it kind of makes you go, okay, we need to get on with this. This is, you know, their opinions aren't changing. And it really came down to how we interpreted that we need to build easy digital services, connected digital services, smart, trusted services. It needs to be their way for the customer, can't be our way. Customers don't want to have to navigate, well, is that which department and which website and how do I find what I need to get done? Just, you know, do it on my terms, in my way. Plus, I think agencies also want the ability to have some control over their services and the way they deliver services to their customers. And inclusive, you know, one of the things that was probably most shocking for me coming out of our most recent customer survey is how many Queenslanders still feel digitally excluded. It's like 2 in 5, which when you do 2/5 of 5.5 million, that's a lot of people who can't afford it, don't have access to it, don't have connectivity, don't have a device, don't have the skills, et cetera, et cetera. So if we really want to build a thriving digital economy, there's 2/5 of the population in Queensland who are saying, well, I feel like I'm on the outside looking in, which not only impacts their ability to access government services, so we can't on one hand say, well, let's put all of our services online when 2/5 of the population feel like they're excluded, but it also takes them out of the job market, education market, and as we've talked about before, when people are digitally included, they have better health outcomes, better literacy outcomes, better financial outcomes, better mental health outcomes. Like that's not a topic we need to debate. We know it. So again, we're just saying that there's 2/5 of the population that feel like they're not getting that. That was quite shocking to me. So we talk about, you know, customer being able to walk in with a single digital identity and start where they want to start on their terms, and then move through the channel based on what they want to do or what their experience, not because we're making them do something, because they want to do it in a particular way. I want to start on my phone. Maybe I need to have a chat with somebody to give me some assistance contextually specific to what I'm trying to do. Maybe I need to talk to somebody. Maybe I need to go onto the website, but I want to be able to start on the phone and then save it and then pick it up on the website because I didn't realize how long the application was. Be able to move back and forth. So that's really what we're working on hard. And then agencies, as needed, can be behind the scenes if it's more of a complex decision that needs to be made in relation to a particular service. The way I describe it, again, you know, these analogies, we want to create that connective tissue, that digital connective tissue between the agencies, who really at the end of the day are responsible for delivering their services. We want to get that digital connective tissue between the agency and the citizen, so we can get that seamless flow of services without making the customer have to bounce around. This is you know, our platform that we're building, and I don't use the word platform lightly. When I say platform, I mean a true multi-sided platform. So customers can come in on one side of the platform and agencies can come in on the other side of the platform. So we're making it easy for agencies to build and deploy digital services, to manage via that connective tissue customer requests that come in, and we'll make it easy for customers to consume and engage in digital services without having to have this many-to-many or one-to-many relationship. And you can see here the colors, the things that are live. Some of them are in beta, some of them are in process, but you get the sense. This is what I mean when I say we're building. Like, we're pouring concrete, we're putting frames up, we're clearing the ground, we're building the pool out the back, we've got the landscape gardener lined up, all those sorts of things. So it's build, 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 with a focus on these core areas to bring that unifying platform that truly is a piece of, it's a legacy. It's intended to be a legacy that we are building for the benefit of agencies and customers. It's a shared piece of infrastructure that any agency can use, and obviously any Queenslander can use on the other side. And happy to take more questions on that as we go. ERP is a big focus for us, enterprise resource planning. So we've got to face into a comprehensive whole of government modernisation of our back office, and you know that's no mean feat. Yeah, a lot of work to be done. You know, we're at well and truly at the tail end of an investment cycle that started in the early 2000s. We're coming off the back of that investment cycle. Now we need to go up the other side of the next hill in terms of our next investment cycle. A lot of work around shared services, AI policy and enablement I talked about, so there'll be more to come from us over the next 12 months around policy, around guidance, taking QChat to the next level, building those, I call them domain-specific use cases that we'll be putting on top of QChat with that AI as a safety service layer in the middle, target architecture, Digital identity is a big piece of work that we've got to do to kind of set forth our strategy, both in terms of what it means for. It's really got to be all-encompassing. It's got to think about what it means for citizens who want to engage with government, digitally, non-digitally, citizens engaging with the economy, digitally and non-digitally. It's got to look at the whole picture. Completing our data center relocation out to iSeek, and deploying a new digital design system. Digital economy, we want to expand our digital service center network. We're looking to set up another 2 locations on the back of a great success we've had at Palm and Cherbourg. Digital professional workforce action plan will be complete. RegTech, this is an area that we're leaning into hard as well. And if you think about what we're trying to do for the customer, we're kind of trying to do the same thing for small businesses. About 400,000 small businesses in Queensland. We, and when I say we, I mean the royal we, all levels of government, make them jump through substantial hoops to get certain things done. So again, we want to create that connective tissue between small businesses and relevant regulatory bodies to enable them to get things done faster. And I think we'll have more to say on this later on in the year. We've got a digital inclusion strategic plan, which Ellen is leading, Ellen and team. Our digital inclusion hub, we'll be looking to get that out later on the year. It's meant to be a one-stop shop place for people who are feeling excluded, particularly those with a disability, to find out what resources, rebates, services, things that they can get access to. And Queensland Digital Infrastructure Plan is earmarked in the digital economy strategy. Also working heavily on that, which is our 10-year vision for how we intend to build that digital plumbing to enable that thriving digital economy as we head towards the Olympics. I've talked about these. I'm conscious of time. We can cover some questions. I've mentioned, First Nations career programs, scaling up, completing our Starlink program with First Nations communities. Additional programs in the connectivity space to accelerate that build out. And yeah, I just always invite you to partner with us. I think I've talked about my motto for partnering with us on previous occasions. Don't sell, truly lean in, partner, tell it like it is, tell us what you can do, and then do it. And just work with us on an authentic basis and focus on what you do and what you do really, really well. And I will leave it there, and I'll look forward to taking questions in the panel. I'll hand it over to Rob. How did I do on time?
Thanks, Chris. I'd like to introduce Rob, our next speaker. So Rob Champion is the Queensland Government Chief Information Security Officer in the Customer and Digital Group. Rob has over 30 years' experience in Queensland Government ICT in infrastructure, architecture, strategy, transformation and projects. Rob has been the Queensland Government Chief Information Security Officer since 2018, and he's been a motivating force in government cybersecurity, helping prepare for events such as the G20 leaders meetings and the Commonwealth Games. Rob and his team are driving continuous improvement and collaboration in cybersecurity across Queensland Government and its partners. I'll hand over to Rob now.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to begin by talking about the evolving threat landscape that we find ourselves in. I think you'd find it's no surprise to anyone that it continues to deteriorate. We're in a situation where pretty much on a weekly basis there's news articles really describing the impact not just on the technology but on the people and on the services that that technology delivers. And fundamentally what that means is that environment continues to be a risk that enterprises need to manage. Government also needs to manage that risk. Right through all of the technologies, legacy and emerging, we need to have security at the heart of what we're doing to maintain that trust. The speed, the scale and the impact of these attacks continues to increase. The speed of the attacker from the point of view of taking vulnerabilities, being disclosed and turning them into weapons, that malicious activity used to take months, it's now taking days or hours. So from the time something becomes known to the time it starts being weaponised, we're in a situation our window to respond is shrinking. The scale of which the attacks are happening continues to expand as well. So we're in a situation that industrialisation of the attack is being really driven right across, and anyone who has that vulnerability is now at risk. In the past, you had to be the target. Now you may be a target just because you run that technology. And the impact we're seeing continues to be greater. Large organisations, you will have definitely seen in the media, Optus, Medibank, Latitude, HW Ebsworth, St Vincent's Healthcare, DP World, big brands, people who have, you know, in some respects quite sizable capability and maturity are still having cyber incidents. So what can we do about that? I think this is the fastest changing risk that organisations face. I can't think of a time where risk was moving so quickly that you're flat out keeping up with the news cycle, flat out keeping up with the new vulnerabilities coming in. They're coming from a whole range of different actors. We've got definitely cybercrime actors that are very industrious in their approach. They're turning our stuff into their money. That's their business model, and they're very good at it, and they're industrialising that activity. Business email compromise continues to be one of the major vectors that we see. It doesn't get reported quite as much as some of the others, particularly ransomware, but business email compromise is leading to large losses, particularly in small to medium business, who potentially don't have the skills or the techniques and the technology to defend against those. Ransomware is evolving as well. The tactics of the attacker continue to evolve. No longer is it just lock up your environment, it's actually take your data, extort you on that, and potentially even extort your customers on that data, or then sell that data on the dark web for further gain. And there was an article in IT News about AFP having 11,000 identified crimes linked to the Medibank incident. So these secondary and tertiary attacks that are occurring continue to increase the attack and the impact of those attacks. At the same time, issues-motivated groups continue to be fairly active around a whole range of social, political areas. War in parts of the world, definitely it is part of our online world where people will express their opinions, not just through words, but sometimes through actions. Those supporters of various causes will look to bring attention to their cause. Our infrastructure, our systems, our services can be the target of that, and it may not be about what we do as an organisation, but it actually might be about who we're related to, or you could just be an innocent victim in that. We've seen some targeting, particularly around issues-motivated groups, where they'd taken offence to something that happened on a fashion show in Victoria, and they start then doing denial of service attacks against infrastructure and universities, various organisations. So you don't even need to be directly involved in the topic to be part of the attack situation. Definitely, nation states continue to be very active. You've seen potentially some advisories from the Australian Cybersecurity Centre and ASD, and also the US around Volt Typhoon. So Chinese espionage actors, very active in pre-positioning themselves for access into networks. They're using living off the land techniques. By what we mean is, in that situation, not bringing malware, not bringing tools to the thing, but using what's already installed on your computers or our computers and our systems to affect that outcome. Makes it very difficult to detect, because they're living in the noise of their own environment. What might look like a legitimate administrator action or a legitimate user action, using the pre-installed tools, very hard to differentiate without a lot of effort. Traditionally, the nation states were very much around espionage, really driving their collection of data, but that's changing. Their motivation is starting to be particularly pre-positioning for further disruptive attacks, particularly if we saw a breakdown in geopolitical activity. We've seen definitely in Ukraine and in the Gaza conflict, the use of cyber as a precursor or in concert with physical operations, and that disruption situation, how do the attackers undermine the capability to respond? That's a very long game. In some respects, it's very insidious because we can't always see it happening. We don't always have good visibility of it. Five Eyes collaboration is a really key part of the response to that. CISA in the US and ASD in Australia, providing those advisories, really opening the covers on what was really quite hidden away activity in the past. So it's not just government that they're targeting business, they're targeting critical infrastructure. Your infrastructure as part of our supply chain, your organisations as part of our supply chain is part of that conversation as well. And the connectedness of our economy means vulnerability in one area translates to potential risk in others. So coming out of the shadows is a really important part of that. The techniques, the tools, the way that's done, the more we can share and collaborate in this piece, we can definitely drive some of that activity and drive up the cost and effort in doing that. Law enforcement continues to have a couple of wins actually, which is good news. We're seeing start seeing some really significant changes. In particular, the Medibank hacker was sanctioned in Russia for his activity in that. I think those sorts of things send very strong messages to the attackers, and our ability really to deter and disrupt their activities is different to trying to prosecute. So some of these people are sitting overseas in jurisdictions that potentially don't have a lot of access to in a law enforcement sense. We're seeing AFP had a pretty successful situation against Lockbit, ransomware crew. Disruption is part of the weapons we've now got against that. So there are some glimmers of hope on the horizon. I think the way we work together is really important in creating a good picture of what the threat actors are doing, but also to inform our organisations about how do we better protect ourselves and respond to this. So moving on to stakeholder expectations, I think our customers expect more of us these days than they ever have. So the threat landscape, privacy, critical infrastructure, the issues around how much you can keep a lid on a story these days is being used against us and our organisations. So definitely the attackers know that. They use those expectations of privacy, they use the expectations of sensitivity to elicit those extortion payments or to make sure that they are making significant damage to you, so either at a reputational level or at a service disruption level. We're also seeing some expectations change around things like ransomware reporting, federal government initiatives around obligations in that space. Whether we see a banning of ransomware payments, yet to be seen, but that's out for consultation at the moment. But what we do know is Australia is a very attractive target. How do we make ourselves a less attractive target in this situation? A whole bunch of issues there, but fundamentally it's an economic problem. It's very cheap to attack. It's actually very expensive to defend. So we've really got to change some of that. The global nature of the environment we're dealing in really is a challenge to all organisations and individuals about how do we participate in a digital economy, get the benefits of the digital economy without exposing ourselves to that risk. In the future, we've still got some additional risks on the horizon. Australia's participation in AUKUS and in Quad does actually raise our profile globally. Nuclear submarines, defence and diplomatic ties to other countries is definitely seeing us elevated on the world stage as to Australia's part. We play a bigger part than what our economy size really would allow us normally. We also increase our attack surface in our support for various theatres of war like Ukraine and the Gaza conflict by taking sides, or even just by the nature of the makeup of our society, we are exposed to some of those risks. There's a risk that those end up being attacks against us, particularly because of either our support for that, or just spillover of the tools that are being used in those theatres of war. We've seen it play out in the past. 2032 will also, and the Olympics will also raise our profile on the world stage. So as a rising risk tide, Australia is really at the forefront of that, and we have to get our capability increased, but also to build and maintain trust with our stakeholders in the economy, citizens, businesses. Very much important that if we don't get cyber right, we won't get digital right. So on that note, we might move forward to really preparing for significant cyber incidents. It is very foolhardy to think that we can ever have a perfect cybersecurity environment and that we'll avoid all cybersecurity incidents. There's a significant amount of effort going into preparing for cybersecurity incidents at a national and a state and at organisational levels across governments. Queensland, as Chris mentioned before, created a cyber-specific hazard plan under the state disaster management arrangements. Formal recognition that cyber as a hazard has the potential to be catastrophic impact to the state. That plan really sits it up with things like the pandemic plan, with natural hazards. That really has to be built into the disaster management thinking, that this new risk that we're exposed to, and it's probably not new to most of us, but I think it is much more in the public psyche and also demonstrated as to the impacts that a cyber incident might have. There is really now a significant focus right across all levels of government to how would we deal with that. At a national level, we have the cyber incident management arrangements for Australian governments, which really talks to how the states and federal government work together around planning and responding to cyber incidents. At a state level, it's going to be different to our natural hazards. Queensland is very good at dealing with natural hazards because we've got way too much practice. Floods, fires, cyclones, we're good at that, but it tends to be a bottom-up response. Cyber is going to be a very different situation, particularly if it's a wide-scale impact to the economy. Consequence management of those things is really important as well. Government has a role to play in mitigating the consequences of the impacts. So be that primary identity documents like digital driver's licences, other components, we can continue to be able to play a role in helping citizens and businesses when that occurs. Under that state cyber hazard plan, we've been running annual whole of government cyber exercises for a number of years. The most recent one we ran in October last year, 120 participants across, I think, 24 agencies. Significant scenario where we actually start to peel back what the roles, responsibilities, what the actions, what the decision points would be in those scenarios. There's also a federal government critical infrastructure exercise program, which is really government leaning into how does critical infrastructure, what's government's role in helping critical infrastructure in those situations and protecting the state's interest and the nation's interest. On top of that, we've increased our Cyber Defence Centre, particularly through establishment of an incident response panel arrangement, having a really intimate relationship with 4 organisations that can come in and help us respond, not just in the centre, but out with the agencies, particularly the smaller ones that don't have those sorts of incident response skills available. We're preparing and conducting exercises and working particularly well with Home Affairs and ASD to sort of make sure we're capable of responding to that. And then this weekend we got the local government elections and state government elections later in the year, which also bring additional risk to us and preparations. So uplifting our cyber posture, really we continue to drive a whole bunch of cybersecurity capability across the sector, engaging not just with departments, but also with our local government and statutory bodies and government-owned corporations, so lifting their capability. In the next 12 months, most of this year, we're going to be focusing on review of our IS-18 policy set. What does that mean? How does it maintain to contemporary approaches to this? And what are we doing around making sure agencies continue to lift their maturity as they go through? The scope of the ISMS and the Information Security Management System is really important. It's not just the organisation, but it's the whole supply chain. How do they come together to deliver services to citizens? And it's not just technology contracts, it's also our general procurement arrangements. We're definitely seeing technology as an enabler to just about every service that is delivered, and every contract that is out there, there is an information issue to be managed there. We're also doing some interesting work around how do we continuously monitor our posture against that. So working with some technologies and lifting our utilisation of the Microsoft E5 licensing, Microsoft Compliance Manager, really to be able to understand our posture without that once-a-year assessment approach. We're also building skills and capability, and Chris touched on it before. Graduating or training existing public servants in Certificate 4 in cybersecurity has been one of our key skills processes, and that to date has generated a lot of capability for government. So cross-training people who are already government employees into cybersecurity. It's actually really interesting to meet some of those people. They come from really diverse backgrounds. They come from really passionate public service values, and they're now leaning into cybersecurity as a second or third career in their life. And I think that's a great opportunity. We've also put in place a bridging program because we know not everyone has the technical capability to move straight into cybersecurity, so making sure that we've got those stepping stones and pathways. AICD board's role in cyber, we've put 220 participants to date through that process in partnership with the AICD. Really important to make sure we've got a receptive audience at the executive level. This is not just a technical problem. This is an organisational risk problem. We've got to have a mindset that drives organisational understanding. AI and automation. Chris also spoke about some of the activities that we've got going on in AI. Safety and trust is really fundamental in our use of that. AI is going to be both a risk and an opportunity for us. A risk that the attackers use it against us. It's a risk of information disclosure, but it's also an opportunity for us to really amplify the resources that we've got and the way we go about it. But there'll be new attack vectors and stuff that goes around that. So how can you help? As industry, you're our partners in doing this. Expect to be a target. Everyone is a target these days. Just by participating in the digital economy, you are part of the risk exposure for Queensland and, individually, organisationally, part of the supply chains. Develop and test an incident response plan in your organisation. Be prepared for that incident because it will happen sooner or later. Every incident that you see in the newspaper, have a sit down and think, what if that happened to my organisation? Not could it happen, what would happen if it did occur in my organisation? How prepared am I now for that? Uplift your cybersecurity hygiene, but not just yours, uplift your customers' cybersecurity and your suppliers' cybersecurity, because it is a connected chain of people that sit there. Implement the Essential 8 if you're not already doing it. Some really good guidance there. It doesn't fix every risk, but it goes a very long way to reduce your risk as an organisation. And then invest in your skills and resources to make those things happen. The other big one is really reporting incidents. Help build that picture of the threat environment. From a perspective point of view, we really have to collaborate better on the defending side. Collaboration is really strong on the attackers. They share information, tools and techniques very well. The commercial sort of imperative here sometimes is we've got to actually take a neighbourhood watch approach and prevent these sorts of things through sharing information with each other, because somebody else's incident is your threat intelligence and vice versa. Report incidents to the ACSC and collaborate with the ACSC, the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, through ASD. Really important, and we expect our suppliers from a government point of view bring that to the table, and that they actually collaborate in minimising harm, not just to the shareholders of your organisations, but to the stakeholders of the broader ecosystem. There's things that government can do in responding to incidents that maybe are outside the capability of your own organisation, particularly when it comes to things like identity documents. Really important that we build trust and we partner right across the ecosystem here. Trust, irrespective of who fails in the system. If there is a cyber incident, it does impact all the way through, and trust to digital is really important, and I think we all share a stake in that. And as Chris said, really around partnering is a key part of the way we do that. So in conclusion, I just wanted to say, look, it's not all doom and gloom. There's some really good work going on. There is also some really meaty problems ahead of us. I think there is goodwill. There is probably lots of opportunity for innovation, lots of opportunity for collaboration, and definitely want to see Queensland Government and Queensland be as prosperous as we can. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rob and Chris. Both, as you can see, we've got them both back on stage for Q&A. If you are joining us from the live stream, would you please also send through any questions that you might have on the live stream chat? I do have one already. It's a big one, so I will
give it to Rob.
I might ask both of you to respond to it. What is the government's timeline and focus relative to workforce integration and, in particular, mobility and optimisation?
Not quite sure what that means. Probably
Paul,
requires
if you are, Paul, if you are on the live stream chat, we need further clarification on that one.
What was it? Workforce integration, optimisation, and
workforce integration, in particular, mobility and optimisation.
Yeah, look, I think what we're seeing, let's interpret that one. I think from a mobility point of view, COVID has definitely changed the way organisations work. The desire both as individuals to have a balance of where you work and how you work, I think government recognises that. We're definitely seeing considerable, advantage in hybrid working in some situations. Finding the balance is always the challenge, and most organisations, I think, will be on that journey. Mobility is probably even broader than that, our ability to work anywhere. Technology enables that, and I think the location, work being a physical location, has really changed over the last 5 years. I think from our point of view, we've got to make sure we can deliver services anywhere effectively. And definitely some of the work we're doing with the Indigenous call centres shows that it doesn't have to be in the southeast corner of Queensland to deliver those digital services. You agree with that, Chris?
Yeah.
You're nodding?
Yep. I agree. Look, I think I would describe everything that's going on in the world at the moment as a bit of an experiment, you know, and much of that was forced upon us by COVID. And I think we're still discovering the positives and the negatives of how that works within CDG specifically. We have, as I said at the beginning, just such an incredibly diverse range of things that we do. Some of it's fairly, I don't know, high intellect, strategic thinking that I think tends to benefit from people being closer together. And then we've also got, you know, things that requires people being out on the front line in the same spot, the same day, 5 days a week, and everything in between. So I think we're very adaptable and flexible, but also discovering what works and what doesn't work. And, you know, we've got to do a couple of things. Yeah, one is learning, teaching what it means to be a good employee in a team when you're not in the room together, and how do you be a good leader? I got to admit, there's definitely some positives, but I see an increasing amount of issues. It's not excessive, don't get me wrong, that I would put down to, like, I'm not in the same room as you, and when you see me say something, you know what I meant, and we can laugh about it or whatever. We never actually had a chance to meet, and we're trading emails and phone calls, and, you know, people take things the wrong way, and we're not as connected when we're apart. And I do think at the end of the day, I don't want to sound like a boomer where it's like, no, everybody's got to be back in the office 5 days a week, but I do see benefits, substantial benefits in the way that what makes us motivated and human beings, and being together and having common shared purposes and communities. And I think I think we've got to acknowledge that we lose some of that when we're working from home all the time. And I do look at things, research that comes out that says if you're working from home in excessive amounts, it can lead to things like depression and loneliness and detachment and all that sort of stuff. So we'll look at the full picture.
Thank you. Chris, this is a question that's for you. It's on the live stream as well, and I will throw to the audience in a second. Do you see an opportunity for Queensland to participate in the cryptocurrency space? Not to put you on the spot, boss.
Yeah. How do I answer that? My team's laughing at me because they know my stance on this sort of stuff. Look, short answer is yes. Look, I think there's a place for the technology that's being developed, and I think there are use cases that will emerge, and we still haven't worked out what those use cases are yet. So let's park the word cryptocurrency because that's got some connotations and some meaning. Let's talk about blockchain technology, whether you're talking about layer 1, layer 2, side chains, et cetera, yes. And I've even had agencies ask me, do we have a policy, do we have a position on using particular layer 1 or layer 2 technologies, and we don't. So I think within government, at some point we need to develop a bit more of a firmer view of what it means to us. What do we think about the technology? It's like being back in 1997 and someone saying, do you think there's an opportunity for Queensland Government to leverage the internet? I'd say, well, yeah, I think so. And did we know back then what it meant and how we were going to exploit it? Not really, but I think it's here to stay, and I think there's some really exciting and innovative technology that's going on that is going to change a lot of things that we do currently.
Thanks. Any questions from the audience? Michael.
Thanks very much. Michael Broadhead from Folk. I wanted to step back to the statistic that Chris mentioned around 2/5 of Queenslanders feeling that they're on the outside. So obviously there's a bunch of exciting stuff coming down the pipeline, but it sounds like the risk in that is that we risk further entrenching that disadvantage and the outcomes. The name of this session is Partners in Technology. Obviously there's a bunch of things happening in government. as partners, what do you need us to be doing to help, as you look ahead to service delivery and so, either in the people that we employ, how we work, what can we be doing to make sure that we don't end up, making that statistic worse? How do we make it better?
Yep, great question. So I think there's a few things. I think there's having a sense of the things that we care about and leaning in, and many of you have done that. So a specific example will be, the work we're doing on First Nations communities establishing digital service centres. It's not been done anywhere else in Australia. I would guess it's not been done anywhere else in the world. We didn't really know what we were getting into. We started it with an open mind, a lot of passion from some people on our side. But one of the things that made a huge difference was the corporate partners, because that gives it an air of legitimacy. It's not just some government program. I don't run a social service. Rob doesn't run a social service. We're here to create a digital economy that is inclusive for everybody, regardless of age, sex, where you live, skill set. You heard me say it before, digital is the great equaliser, and I truly, truly believe that. So I think that's one example. Device poverty. What can you do? What are you guys doing with your devices currently? Where do they go? Are you ensuring that they go to the right places? What role are you playing to lift skills and raise awareness about digital inclusion? How are you lobbying and advocating to create opportunities for returning veterans or refugees or culturally, linguistically neurodiverse populations, seniors, all of those people? I mean, the people who are on the outside looking in, they're quite easy to name. They're the typical people who get left out. So we need to do more. It's a big lift, and as I say, digital doesn't care what colour you are, where you went to university, how old you are. Doesn't care about any of those things. There's an opportunity for you, but you need people who know it, who have the awareness, and are willing to try. Just try to do things. A little effort can make a massive difference.
Thank you. Oh, question up the back.
More of a cybersecurity related question. Two of them actually. First of all, at the start of the presentation, Chris, you mentioned that you blocked 100% of DDoS attacks and just general defense blocking queries of attacks. What exactly does the government define as stopping/blocking a DNS attack or another attack from a hacker group? And second of all, I've been a bug bounty hunter for many years now, and I'm trying to think of when in time it took months to turn a vulnerability disclosure into an attack vector. Was this many years ago? And if yes, how did the disclosure policies or the way that the security researchers disclosed vulnerabilities, how did that look that it took that long for them to turn the vulnerability into some kind of POC?
Yeah, so definitely on denial of service attacks, the way we define that is impact to services. So the reason we're saying 100% success rate in defeating those is that we're not having downtime in regards to denial of service attacks. Our gateway protections and the way we've done that were set up back in the G20 leadership meetings days, and that's been effective since there. We're seeing increasing attacks right across the world around denial of service. It's a tool particularly used by the sort of issues motivated groups more than the criminals, but it is definitely an attack vector that can have pretty serious consequences to service delivery, so that's how we measure that one. In regards to vulnerabilities, definitely the change has been as soon as a vulnerability or even a patch is being put out, that's being reverse engineered by attackers. So even when the disclosure processes work effectively, what we're seeing is the attackers working backwards and going, oh, that's the patch, what were they patching? Oh, and within days and hours now, starting to see some of those going from public disclosure through to exploitation. The process, definitely how we work together and collaborate through disclosure of new vulnerabilities is really important so that people are ready to respond to that and that we ring the alarm bells and prioritise. We won't be able to patch everything. So what are the highest profile ones? What are the ones that have the biggest potential impact to services? When they get weaponised, We quite often don't have a choice about when that's going to occur. The attacker is in control of that. What we do have is control of how well prepared we are for an attack to come through. So making sure the awareness is out there. We do a lot of work across the sector to make sure agencies are focusing on the right vulnerabilities.
I do have a further cyber question that's come from the live stream. So incident response plans are usually effective against known attacks, but what about novel AI attacks that have never happened before?
Yeah, look, I think that is definitely a risk that we all face, that the changing attack vectors and the innovation that happens on the attacker's side. One of the things I'm constantly amazed at is the level of innovation that the attackers bring to the table. If we had that same level of innovation on the defending side, I think we'd be in great position, but they are very willing to try new techniques. Having said that, they keep doing the old techniques until they don't work anymore. So we're in this increasing risk environment where the old stuff still works because we haven't cleaned up our attack surface and we're an easy target, and then they won't move unless there is value in it for them, and it's usually about speed, scale and impact, as I said. Quite often it can be the scale and the speed that AI will bring to the table in that space.
Thanks, Rob. Matt, okay, one more. Sorry, we're just a minute over time, but it's great that there's so many questions. I will throw to the person in the back.
Thank you. Actually, I'll change my question just to pick up on the points that you just made. I had the benefit last Thursday and Friday of being in Canberra with the AFP and the E-Safety Commissioner and others, and they talked about the adoption of AI across the criminal networks, and they see now that their biggest single threat is their inability to respond quickly enough, because the procurement process means, in their words, takes them 18 months to respond to something that the criminals actually figure out how to do in 18 minutes.
Yep.
So agility around the procurement process is what they see as being their biggest single issue. Is there a mechanism that you guys are looking at to try and figure out how we reduce that time to market aspect in order to improve our kind of risk mitigation process?
Look, I think agility is a real key part of what we need to do. Definitely when we're dealing with government money, we need to make sure that we've got levels of probity and disclosure and ethical dealing there, that everyone gets a chance. Trying to balance those things about speed of output and outcome versus sort of the dealing with government funds. Innovative solutions, we've got to find ways of changing that, and if you've got ideas, bring them forward about what are ways that we could work through that, trying to make sure we're dealing with the threat environment that we sit in, and the constraints we have on expectations from the community.
Matt, no more. Okay, I'm getting the wind-up signal, so thank you very much for your engagement this morning. Would you please join me in thanking Chris and Rob for their presentations and insights today? You will be receiving a survey about today's event. Feedback's really, really important to the PiT team, so if you could actually respond to that survey, that would be really helpful. If you've got any inquiries about these PiT briefings, please do visit the Business Queensland website and connect to the PiT team. Today's presentations have been recorded and will appear on the Business Queensland website shortly. I also would like to make a little plug for the Government and ICT Industry Trivia Night on the 6th of June. Please go to Eventbrite to buy tickets. It's a really, really great evening, and Chris has thrown down the gauntlet for someone to beat his table this year. I'd really like to thank our PiT team and their supporting staff, so Matt Rose, Amelia Cardell, Harrison King and Hilary Alvested-Lowe, and also the State Library of Queensland's events, venue and technical staff. None of these events could happen without you, so thank you very much. And I would also like to thank all of you. Thank you for getting here early this morning, for attending today in person, and also those on the live stream. We really hope that you found today's presentations are really helpful and interesting, and please now join us for coffee and networking out on the Queensland Terrace. Thanks everyone.